Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Elevating IT podcast. I am Mike Brooks, and this is Frank DiBenedetto. Hey, Frank.
That is me. What's up, Mike? How are you? How was your week?
Good. How you doing? Good. It was a good week. I think I was sick a little bit in the middle of the week. I wasn't feeling good, and I was like, oh, do I have
Did you
COVID?
freak out?
No, because I was, I'm thinking it's probably just my stomach saying, you should probably cut back on drinking a little bit.
About a week and a half ago, I didn't feel good, and I kind of woke up late at night, and I was like, "Oh no, do I have a fever?" And so the next thing I did was I was like trying to see if I could smell. So I'm like,
see if you lost your taste.
Yeah, I'm testing my smell. I'm like, this is terrible. Like how in your head this is. And so I got up, and I could have easily just taken my temperature, just ended it all right there. But I waited 5 hours until about 9:30 in the morning. I woke up at 4, so it was 9:30, and I finally took my temperature. But I was sweating because I was nervous. I was like, this sucks. I mean, I'm gonna be like this,
forever. Yeah, forever, I think everybody
does. I don't know if anybody else is mental like this, but I'm like I don't know why I'm so worried. I guess I know why, but I just, I'm like,
well,
it's
because yeah. Anyway, today we're talking about objections, and this is a great topic. And we'll talk about it again, but I think it's like the thing that causes sales to die, right? Like when you're in a sales process, it's the thing that causes things to go off the rails, right? You can be having a great sales conversation with somebody, all of a sudden an objection comes up and it just derails everything. So in a moment, we're going to talk a little bit about sales, but I wanted to pre-frame that. And first I want to say hello to a couple people here. Ty says hello from Culver City, California. Hey, Ty, thanks for coming. Make sure you say hi in the comments, whether you're on YouTube. We stream this on YouTube and we stream it on Facebook. So, and it's always fun for me. I get to see who is on Facebook and who's on YouTube. And believe it or not, more people watch live on YouTube than on Facebook. Yeah. So you can leave comments, and you can see Ty's picture came up of his family. And I love the masks. That's pretty cool. They're all wearing, I don't know if you could see that, Frank. Can you see that comment?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. Beautiful picture. But if you're not able to put your picture up, if your picture doesn't appear up, we broadcast through StreamYard. So if you go to StreamYard and get credentials, you can show your lovely faces to us. And Jody's saying hello from New Hampshire, where there is no tax on liquor, which here in Connecticut, we know that because we go up sometimes. I know my mother goes up with my stepfather all the time. They go up once or twice a month to load up.
You can go clean out a liquor store.
Yeah. Brian saying hello from Lafayette, Louisiana. Hello, Brian. Good to see you always.
We got all corners of the country covered.
Corners of the country. It's great to see everybody. So let's jump in, Frank, and talk about objections. So we all get them, right? Everybody gets objections. What are the classic ones that you get as an MSP? I mean, and we can talk about objections from the standpoint of anything's on the table, right? We're talking broad. Yeah. You can talk about objections from setting, from the start to, the marketing side to all the way.
Yeah, let's start there, because I think what's important is that your marketing helps you overcome the objections before they become objections, right? So it really starts there. Again, I give Robin credit, for the things that I've learned.
Robin Robbins, you got to.
Robbins, yeah.
Right? Sorry. Technology marketing toolkit. She rebranded something, right? Is that correct?
No, I think she started Big Red Media, which is in response to all the virtual stuff that people are doing, and she did a great job with her boot camp, and she learned a bunch of things and started a company to help other vendors in the space be able to pull off these virtual events. But
I gotta
I learned a
say,
lot from her in the beginning.
I gotta give a plug before you go on, because I
Okay.
love watching them, what they do, because they're fast. They
Oh yeah.
implement with massive speed. They go and they do stuff. I love that. And me and you always like have debates about that. Like, I love seeing people just throw mud at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, no, Robin. I don't think Robin sleeps. In fact, I know she doesn't. We were on a call with her, and she was kidding around. I asked her if she was taking any time off. This was over the summer, and she's like, "Summer?" She was like, "I don't take time off." She's like, I never stop." And yeah, I believe her. But back to the topic here. It starts with that marketing, right? So you want to try to overcome those objections before they become objections, and a variety of things. It's one, how you market and the types of leads that you generate. So you want to try to make sure that you're bringing in people that are more likely going to use your products and services. So you really do need to clearly define your avatar and know who you're looking for, because if you're just spraying and praying, you're going to be doing a whole lot of weeding them out after the fact and usually dealing with more of those objections. The other thing is being able to answer those questions, frequently asked questions, before they become issues. But assuming that is already what you're doing, it's inevitable that someone's going to probably come in with some objection at some point, right? You're never going to eliminate 100% of those. So that just kind of helps you stack the deck in your favor a little bit. But I mean, the big elephant in the room is always price, right? Like, that's the one thing that if you don't do properly and you don't build that value, then price becomes an issue. They say it's only ever an issue in the absence of value. That's a big one that we would sometimes hear. I think also another objection has to do with the incumbent, right? So people tend to stick with the devil they know versus the devil they don't know, and you're the devil they don't know. And then they're worried about that longevity factor, like, what's this going to take? Like, I've been with the other guy for so long, he kind of knows how we work, and even though they're not very good. So sometimes, even though you pitch this, they view like that whole onboarding process as a potential objection. Those are two big ones that come my way. The other one has to do with support. Many companies are so used to support being like the standard, meaning that like doing it right isn't the method to follow. It's just, are you guys going to be available nights, weekends, all day long, right? And I always try to get them thinking, no, that's not how we work at all. Of course, I'm not going to be available for you at midnight on Sunday, right? Like, that's not how we want to structure this. We want to head off those midnight calls by doing things right. So we got to break it. But that becomes an objection too. Oh, you don't have 24-hour support. Some people do, the ones who don't.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about that, because that's a decision too that not every some MSPs are maybe they're break fix and they're trying to convert to MSP, right? Everybody's at a different place in their journey on MSP. You've made a decision to not do that, right? But there's others out there who are probably sitting here watching this thinking, I'd love to be able to do that. How do I do that? Like, talk about that decision process on your part and how that's,
you mean make the change to become an MSP versus?
No, I mean, like, if you're
not offer certain things,
not offer certain things that you think, because and the reason I say that is because sometimes people think that I have to say yes to everything. I have to do everything that the customer wants, no matter how ridiculous it is, because I don't want to lose the sale.
Yep.
So I'm talking about maybe giving people confidence to be able to fight that objection the way you fight it.
Well, one, I think you need to have alignment in your solution stack. So you have to know exactly what you're offering and where you want that client to be. Because anything to the contrary means there's a lot of work to bring them into alignment. So you need to start that conversation in the beginning and get them to, help them understand this is our end game. This is the goal. This is where we ultimately want to have you with these things. And I make it very clear. I say, you don't want me to be, we don't want you to be the first client with this brand of firewall that we don't work on, right? We're not experts in that. Right. So, I'm going to say, no, we don't support that. I'm sorry. We're going to rip that out sell you a different one. Same thing with like, say, 24-hour support. We're not set up for that. And I could tell you, experience for me has been, we sold a 24/7 SKU, and anybody I ever sold it to eventually canceled it, because what I told them would happen is exactly what happened, was they never used it. So if someone comes in, we brought on a client recently who, asked about that. I said, listen, we have an on-call mechanism. And sure, every once in a while, we do get we get an emergency call, and it'll come through on our line and we'll handle it. But I said, we don't have somebody sitting there overnight. We would handle one call every other week. Like, it's just not economically feasible for me. And you'd wake up one day and say, why am I paying for this? We use it like twice a month. So you just have to be good at knowing where your limitations are and when to say no. And sometimes, we talk about the gap's not wide enough, or if you can't solve the problems that they have, you have to learn when to say no. Like, this isn't going to be a good fit for either one of us. It's going to end in frustration. And, I think that prospects will respect that. If they don't, that's even a bigger sign that, that you're in the wrong spot. So I think that for me, it's always been just knowing where our limitations are. I remember one prospect saying to me, you mean we're going to rip this firewall out that we just put in last month? And I said, yeah. I said, well, one, I don't know why you'd buy a firewall from an IT company that you were looking to get rid of anyway. But nonetheless, I said, unfortunately, this isn't one that we support. And at the end of the day, they bought a new firewall, and they were like, do you want this? And I took it, like, to make them feel better about it, but I threw it in the garbage. I mean, it was a brand new firewall. It's just we don't support it. And, now is not the time for us to become an expert in that. So, it wasn't really an objection, though, I don't think. These are just really the things that pop up. I think really going back.
That's an interesting one, because that's education, right? Like, so it's only an objection if you don't get them past. You headed something off. Like, it could have been an objection, but you headed something off at the front. And I'm sure there's more to it. Like, you must have educated them on why that firewall should go in the garbage. And as long as they believe that, and they go, okay, you know what? It's going to cost us more.
Yeah. And so that's a great example. And really, this is all about helping them understand the current state. See, I got way more objections, especially based on price, when I didn't help the prospect understand their current state, and we went right over to the proposal. Because then what I had to do is go line by line and explain every little thing. So of course we're stuck on, why am I buying another firewall? I never had. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, and I'll give you a perfect example. We just did a presentation for a law firm on Wednesday. And we can't go to their office. So we spoke to them. They were on a prospect list. So we did some marketing. They called us up and said, we brought the server home like 6 months ago. We've been like sort of half copying files all over. This isn't the right way to work. So it's like right in our wheelhouse for cloud. And as we were talking to them, I'm taking notes of what all their issues and problems are. Now, I don't know what's in their office, so I don't know what firewall they have, but I'm still doing an audit for them. So I changed it. I took out the stuff that, normally we would physically verify, and I swapped into my audit other things under cybersecurity that were important. So when it came time to do the presentation and to tell them how much our services were going to be, we went through the audit. So present plan, I went through all the things that were wrong to help them understand. And, in the case of, say, that firewall, that, the example that you brought up, I would show that firewall is yellow and say, hey, I have a new firewall, but it's not being monitored. And, and that's pretty typical, because a lot of these guys don't monitor them. So then I say, you want me to not be able to monitor it either? Like, I got to resolve this. So we don't support that brand, but we support this brand. And then I could show it as green. So it becomes, and I've easily helped them understand, no, I need to this has to be green, and this is how we get there. And so once I went through the current plan for these guys, they scored a 26. I actually could bring them to 100. A lot of times it's rare. I told them, I said, hey, there might be some things in your office that we find one day when we get there. But for right now, this would resolve all the issues as I see them. And it's $2,300 a month. And they were like, okay. And then, they had a couple questions about a few things that weren't techie. I brought the proposal out only to show them, hey, this is the project and here's the bottom line. We went through not one line item. And I thought to myself, before using audit, what would I have done in that scenario? Well, we've been using the proposal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one mistake people make is emailing it. So we would never email it. So like, no, we want, yeah, but I would have had to have like pulled the proposal up on the screen, one of these, 4 of these, 6 of these. And you can't convey value and it's so confusing. Here it was like, boom, boom. They called yesterday with a question. It was again, a buying sign when they have a question. It had to do with like, how do we count workstations? And we gave them a little incentive. It said, hey, if you sign by the end of the quarter, we could take a little bit off of the onboarding because our cloud vendor is going to give us a little incentive. So we could pass it along to you. If not, take your time, So I think we'll get them to sign by Monday, but all signs seem to indicate that. But heading off those problems or showing it this way greatly minimizes it. No, we don't get into a price issue at all. Yeah. One of the other ways I know, like, so I mentioned price as an objection sometimes. If they have another proposal and they're just trying to understand it, so we do our presentation, they understand that, but they have no idea what the other competitor is trying to show. We oftentimes offer to audit the proposal. So it's kind of like saying, hey, here's our future plan. I know what ours includes. Let me have their proposal and I'll audit it. I'll tell you what they're providing to you, right?
I love that tactic.
Yeah, and we've done it more often than you would think. I tell them, I say, take the name off. It's fine. I'm not looking to disparage or pick on anybody. Take the name off. You can even take the pricing off for all I care because it's irrelevant. I don't care what they're charging for it.
Right.
All I want to see is what they're offering to you. And because I understand, I speak the Geekanese, I can look at that and I could audit it. And then I could show them the two things. And then what I'm able to do is say, hey, our solution offers all this and their solution offers a subset of it. And then you can make an educated comparison. So it's not like, well, you're $3,000 and they're $2,000, but it's not the same thing, right? It's $2,000, but you're getting less for it. But again, a prospect doesn't understand it. So that tactic has served me well.
That's brilliant. Like, and we should make sure people know, because not everybody who's on here is an audit user, but you're using audit to do this. I mean, I want to make sure that's clear. This is the Elevating IT podcast, but it's sponsored by audit.
Right.
So,
that's what because I use it. I mean, that's how I handle these things. And then, the mentality too, there's two things here, right? So in our industry, there is getting a new client, right? So you have a prospect that you've never worked with. You have to get them as a client. And I think that's oftentimes overlooked because everyone talks about like doing the VCIO stuff, right? Which is upselling and cross-selling existing clients, which is a great way to keep the client sticky and make sure you're doing a good job, and certainly easier to sell to existing clients than get a new one. But you need to get new clients too, right? So I use, so this is where you get a lot more of the objections. When we're talking about an existing client, I think you get less objections, but I also use upsell. I'll give you a quick example if you don't mind. We recently,
and Brian says he loves that tactic, by the way.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. We recently became a partner with ThreatLocker. Great company. Really, I saw a need for this in our cyber stack, which was application whitelisting. And
tell me who ThreatLocker is. I've heard of them, but give me kind of the basics of who they are.
Yeah, they do. So they do application whitelisting and data protection. It was an area that we thought we were deficient in. That basically the concept of zero trust. So at the end of the day, you only can run the things that we've approved. And if you try to execute anything, whether it's, stuff that you legitimately need to run or like malware, like the bad stuff, it would be blocked. And then, then there's a mechanism in place to request the ability to run those things. So again, it just helps you really, button up that local environment. And then of course the data protection side, really cool stuff, like, because we get questions like, how do you prevent people from saving stuff on their desktop? We, in the past, we'd be like, well, it's a policy. You just tell them not to do it. But if they do it, you know, you suffer the consequences. But here we could actually manage that. So, everything out there is, you need to add to your stack. So selling it going forward is pretty easy because we build it into a bundle and raise our price, incrementally to be able to handle that. But I have to sell that to, all my existing clients. So, we're already in the process of creating the infographic so we can educate, and then adding that. In fact, we already added it into audit. And now as I do my business reviews, hey, there's going to be a red box for that audit item. And of course, what's the question? Well, what is that? I'm glad you asked. Here's the infographic. How much is it? Oh, it's only, X dollars more per month. And, we talked about this, from a few months back. I've got my clients cultured into, they want to see green. They don't really want to see red. If I show up with red, they're kind of saying to me, why do you resolve this? And I go, well, because it was, I didn't want to charge you an extra $50 a month. They'd look at me like, are you crazy? Like, we pay you $5,000 a month. So you left us exposed with risk that you identified for $50 or $100 a month, right? So not everybody can do this, I understand, but that's a cultural thing, right? So when we're working with existing clients, they're used to, looking at those reports, seeing the deficiencies, and there's an expectation that Two River Technology Group is handling these things. Right. Smaller clients are the ones that are super price conscious. Those are the ones that were more likely to have that longer protracted meeting. But if you've never, used the style before, that's what you do. Go in there and say, hey, we like to educate you. And I've done that a bunch of times this year. This would be the third product that I've introduced since COVID hit, that it will lead to an upsell. And so anyway, those guys have been pretty cool to work with, and I'm excited about adding them into our stack. And
talk about getting over a price objection. Like you can basically go out and get a new product that you've decided to add to your stack and just add it to your existing clients, charge them money, and then never really have to worry about it. I mean, that's really, you've definitely handled that price objection thing.
Yeah. Well, there's value, and again, that's the expectation. So we're not raising prices. We're adding something of value, and it costs a little bit more. I think when we did it in April, I had one client question me on it, like, how could you raise prices during a pandemic? And I said, well, I didn't raise my price. We actually added 2 pieces of technology here to help keep you protected and safe, especially with people working from anywhere. Right. And then they said, oh, wow, thank you. Yeah, like, thank you for that. So, again, it was a little bit of a, and that's really what we're doing. A lot of it's education, and then the value just follows. Sure. And then it's like, yeah, let's do that. And it's okay.
The worst case scenario anyway is you just go, you know what? I'll refund your money, right?
Well, that's exactly what I said. I said, I'm happy to roll you back to, to not have it. And to be honest with you, this is always the interesting thing for me as an MSP. It probably costs me more for you not to have that. And sometimes what I'll do is, like, if I'm not charging you for it, I might roll it out anyway. And I remember this tactic back when they were teaching us how to go from break fix to do managed services. And they would say, you should put your managed services agent on every computer, whether you're doing break fix or not, because it makes it easier for you to do your job, right? So even though you're paying for it and the client is not footing the bill, the price is so small that it just and that was really what helped us grow quickly in the very, very beginning. This is years ago, because I was like, yeah, I want to make my life easier, right? I'm not going to let the client dictate how hard my job is going to be, because they impact the results that I have. So, and as you grow, it just makes sense. So I kind of adopt that same mentality a lot of times with this, because here's my thinking. If I have 50 clients and 49 of them, use and pay me for something, and one says no, who's the one client I'm going to have the problem with on Sunday night at midnight?
Yeah, exactly.
And then of course they would have bought it had they realized what that impact is. But I just don't want to be in that position. So sometimes I say, you know what, I'm going to put it in there anyway. I may pay for it myself, and that may some people might go, oh my God, that's terrible. You lose margin, but it helps with alignment, and the alignment helps me stay lean and mean, in terms of like being leveraged. And if I can hire one less person because I'm paying a couple bucks a month for a tool that does the job, doesn't complain, doesn't take any days off, to me, sometimes that's worth it.
Right. Awesome. Well, Ty said, this is a great reminder that I need to add a FAQ to my website. And he said that earlier when you were talking about that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's really, we do a lot of blogging at Audit. I do, I deal with that, and I'm always writing stuff, always posting things out on social media, and 9 times out of 10, they're answering questions. I always answer, I'm always writing to the questions that I get asked regularly, and don't just write them once. That's my advice as a content marketing person, is you can answer the same question in 100 different ways. And it helps. It actually is really good for your website, by the way, from an SEO perspective. If you're answering those questions, especially from the prospect point of view, you're gonna get those hits on Google that you're looking for. So blogging and FAQ, continually writing about it. One of the folks that early tactic that I used is taking a question. This is in my previous business, and taking the price question and just writing it in different ways. So one blog post might be, how much does this cost? What's the price of this thing? And you can break that into all these different cool headlines that are basically answers in Google. So
one of the coolest things for price wise that I've seen, and I probably don't use it enough, but was breaking it down to the smallest unit that somebody could understand, right? So instead of telling them, hey, it's $2 a month per computer or whatever, if you could break that down to a day,
right,
and you say it's like 4 cents a day,
right, break it down to the ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes that works too, just in answering that question, like say for as little as 4 cents a day per person.
Sure.
Like you're heading off like this big issue that we see. That helps a lot of times. It's when you talk about the FAQ, it's funny. I remember when I first had launched Two River Tech, probably 15 or 16 years ago, and I had like a folder. Remember when it was more of the show me environment?
Yeah, sure.
So you had your brochure. I had a really cool brochure, and I had the folder, and I had stuff that I would put in there. And I remember I wrote a letter, it was like a form letter. It was like, dear prospect, or I think I put dear future, like Two River Tech client, like something like that. Like I assumed you were going to become a client.
Right.
And I kind of wrote, and it was sort of like, my mentality, and just let you know what you're getting involved with. It was funny. I found it not long ago. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like I should still use this.
You could probably digitize it. That could be anything you've ever written can be put, if you have stuff that you did like that, it's great to dig it out and see where you can fit it in the website.
And one of them was FAQ. And I remember, people would ask me questions like, what do you charge hourly? Like, do we get charged for this? Do you charge, to come on site, or do you charge for travel? Like whatever it was, the FAQs, like I got tired of answering. So to your point, if people ask you a question enough times, that's usually your indication to, create an answer as an FAQ and head it off from the beginning. But whether it's on your website or in a package you send to the prospect ahead of time, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's we can dig deep into this. I think we're getting close to the half hour, so we'll wrap up. Maybe we'll do this, maybe part 2 of this next week, and do an advanced. Because how you answer these is important too. For example, back in my martial arts school running days, I ran a martial arts school, and that was the number one question. It's the number one question for everybody, right? How much does it cost? My answer always was, it depends. And then I went into why it depends, and then trying to turn it around, because if it's a phone call, and you answer it without understanding why they're asking the question, you can go down the wrong path. You scare them off. There's tons of reasons why you don't want to necessarily answer a question at a certain point. So we could probably dig into that again.
Yeah. I final thought too. I was having a conversation earlier today with someone from the industry, about selling, and we were just talking about how it's changed a little bit now in the last like 4, 5, 6 months, where you don't have as good an opportunity to build that relationship with a prospect. And now, like, when you're getting these phone calls, it really is like almost like a price call, because you haven't like had an opportunity to go meet with them and maybe do that proper assessment. So, you got to be careful that you don't get drawn into that you do, figure out a way to build that relationship, hopefully give them reasons to say yes. I mean, we talked about this. I just had, my air conditioner, the furnace, all that stuff replaced. And I know the guy really well, so I trust him.
Yeah.
He sent me like links to stuff. I have no idea what the heck I was reading, right? Like it was like completely foreign to me.
Right.
And, I think I'm a smart guy, so I tried to follow along as that. When I said yes to him, it was because I trusted him recommending it to me, right? Now, had another HVAC company that I had no relationship said that for that price, I probably would have said no and done a whole lot more research. So a lot of times when they say no and the objection, it's not that they're not going to do anything. It's just that they're not convinced that it's worth what the value that you've either built or failed to build, right? So this guy built value in the relationship. I trusted him and I said, okay, let's do it. So that's important. So, in these new times that we have, I think for now into, a while in the future, we're going to have to work in this hybrid mode where you don't quite have that same ability to go meet somebody, shake their hand, just listen and have a conversation. There's a reason why people, go on site versus do everything, remotely like this.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it here. Before we go, so what I think I'd like to pick this up next week, Frank. I think we could talk about this again next week and expand on it. If you're listening and you drop a comment and let us know what objection you'd like us to talk about. What objection or what with anything with objections from prospecting to selling to closing to any part of the sales cycle. Let us know what the objections are that you hear or that you've had a challenge overcoming, scenarios where you have been successful to overcome objections, tips, tricks that you might have. And if you're not comfortable leaving it in the comments, we always love the comments, but feel free to email them to me. My email is mike@auditforit.com. That's audit, FORIT.com, not the number 4. And this was great conversation. I think, this is really important to explore because it makes or breaks the sale.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. It's getting a little chillier out there, so enjoy the weather while you can still get outside.
Yeah, I think we have a couple more nice days coming, and then it's going to be cold.
Yeah. So. We'll be back at you next week. Until then, have a great week, everybody.
All right. See you.